this case about whether you think the birth was real, whether you think there was a surrogate, whether you think Meghan was wearing a moon bump. The fact is, Harry and Meghan lied. Buckingham Palace lied on their behalf. There was a complete cover-up over the birth of Prince Archie.
Something big just dropped, and people cannot stop talking about it. Everywhere you look, this topic is trending, and the energy around it is intense. Candace Owens is calling out Meghan Markle in a way that has people doing a serious double take, especially when it comes to the ongoing questions around Archie and Lilibet. What's really happening behind the scenes, and why are so many people suddenly zooming in on every little detail? The internet is going wild with reactions, theories, and strong opinions, and it's not slowing down at all. Candace isn't holding back either. She's putting everything out there and raising questions that many didn't expect to hear said so openly. Meanwhile, Meghan Markle's name is once again right in the middle of a growing storm, and the divide between supporters and critics is getting louder by the minute. Some are brushing it off as just another wave of online drama, but others are convinced there's something deeper going on that people are only now starting to notice. The details being discussed have left many shocked, confused, and wanting answers fast. And once you hear what's being said, it starts to make sense why this is blowing up so quickly. It all unfolded on a bright, picture-perfect stage in Washington, D.C., the kind of setting where everything looks carefully planned and perfectly polished. Meghan Markle stood there under flawless lighting, dressed in clean white, giving off that calm, controlled energy while smiling gently at the crowd. She was speaking about women's empowerment and financial independence, hitting all the familiar points people expect from her public appearances. At first, nothing felt unusual. It sounded like the typical Meghan speech: smooth delivery, carefully chosen words, and those polished phrases that always connect with an audience. But then, out of nowhere, she said something that made people pause mid-listen and really think about what they just heard.
Archie was so little, and I had just gotten pregnant with Lily around that same time, so we were nesting.
She mentioned 5 years ago. Archie was so little, and I had just gotten pregnant with Lilibet. That one line instantly got people talking, and the reaction kicked off almost immediately. And just like that, the mood completely shifted. People didn't just hear what she said, they really caught it and started thinking deeper. Archie was born in 2019, and Lilibet arrived in 2021. So when she said 5 years ago, it pointed straight to 2020. And suddenly the timeline didn't feel right. And when something feels even slightly off, that's when people start paying very close attention and breaking everything down step by step. Within minutes, that exact clip started spreading everywhere online. It was replayed over and over, slowed down, zoomed in, and analyzed from every possible angle. And of course, Candace Owens saw it and didn't stay quiet for long. She jumped straight onto her platform and went all in, putting the clip front and center while questioning everything around it. She said this woman can't keep her own story straight and pushed even further, claiming Meghan keeps reshaping her narrative every time she speaks. Then she took it a step further, pointing out that this wasn't just about small details anymore. This was about something as major as the timeline itself. And that right there is what made people start talking even louder. The clip didn't just circulate, it completely took over online spaces within hours. It pulled in millions of views and sparked thousands of comments from people who had already been side-eyeing things for a while. Many had quietly noticed small inconsistencies before, different versions of similar stories showing up here and there. And this moment pushed everything right into the spotlight. Candace's reaction stood out in a big way, not because she was loud, but because she stayed calm, focused, and locked in on the details. She didn't need to raise her voice or get emotional.
This idea with your husband that you should twerk and put up a camera, that's the part that really bothers me, put up a camera, fixate it, and then both of you start twerk.
She simply laid things out clearly, step by step, and that approach hit even harder. Because when details don't line up, no amount of emotion can smooth that over. So people started breaking it down carefully. Archie, Meghan's first child, was born in May 2019, and then Lilibet followed in June 2021. Those dates are widely known, documented, and easy for anyone to check. But in that DC speech, Meghan seemed to place both moments around that same 5 years ago timeframe, and that's where things started to feel off for a lot of viewers. Looking at the timeline, 5 years ago lands around 2020, and during that period, she wasn't expecting Lilibet yet, and her situation at the time was very different too. That gap between what was said and what people already know is what really pushed this conversation to another level. Lady Colin Campbell, known for being one of Meghan's strongest critics, also weighed in, saying she doesn't even bother to get the timeline straight, it's a total muddle. That comment spread quickly across online discussions, and for many watching, that muddle didn't feel like a small slip anymore. It started to feel like something bigger. Because when details that have been widely reported across headlines, books, and interviews start to sound different, people don't always see it as simple confusion. For some, it begins to feel like the narrative is shifting in real time, and that's what keeps the conversation going strong. Right after the event, Meghan posted a polished highlight reel on social media, filled with soft filters, clean camera angles, and that signature polished look that always pulls attention. It looked smooth, controlled, and exactly how you would expect it to appear. But then things took another turn. People who were actually in the room started speaking up, and what they described didn't fully match what showed up online. They said something important was missing from that polished clip.
We had only one ball. Meghan, a geriatric mother. The family claims and state that Meghan had a hysterectomy. How can a woman with a hysterectomy be pregnant?
If she hasn't had the children herself, or Harry hadn't been involved, then they can't be in the royal line. They have to have royal blood, those little ones. Without that, there's no chance of them coming in a member.
And once that idea got out, it spread fast. According to those attendees, the full picture might not have been shown, and that only made people even more curious about what really happened in that moment. The version that ended up online told a very different story. According to people who were actually there, the edited clip left out the awkward moments, the uneasy laughs, and even those small pauses where the energy didn't quite land. Some even said there were interruptions and reactions from the crowd that never made the final cut. What viewers saw instead was a clean, polished sequence filled with applause, smiles, and smooth transitions that made everything look flawless. That contrast is what really set things off, and not in a quiet way. The comment sections lit up fast, and the tone shifted almost instantly. People started saying things like everything about her feels rehearsed, while others added she edits reality to fit her story. Some went even further, questioning how genuine those moments really were. And the discussion just kept growing. Candace Owens leaned into that angle as well, saying, Meghan Markle proves she's authentic by removing everything that feels real. That line spread quickly across social media and hit hard with a lot of viewers. What was meant to be a strong, positive appearance suddenly turned into something else entirely, a moment that raised even more questions instead of clearing anything up. And that's when the conversation started going even deeper. Some people began pointing out that Meghan isn't just any public figure. She has a background in acting, and to them that detail matters.
Everybody and just produce a DNA sample or proof of delivery.
It's like she's playing a human being, like it's a performance. I've never seen this sort of. I've never seen someone that struggles to just give us like one strip of off.
Actors are trained to manage emotions with precision, knowing exactly when to smile, when to pause, and how to deliver a moment so it lands with impact. But outside of a scripted setting, that same level of control can feel different, especially when every reaction seems perfectly timed. That's when some viewers start wondering if what they're seeing is natural or carefully shaped. There's even a term that gets brought up in these conversations, performative empathy, where something looks emotional on the surface but may be guided by technique. For years, people online have talked about Meghan being inspired by Princess Diana, from her tone to her presence and certain emotional expressions. But Candace Owens pushed that idea further, suggesting that inspiration may have become something more strategic. She said Meghan shaped an image that mirrors a familiar story, adding that she's built a career presenting herself like a continuation of that legacy. Then she followed it up by saying, Harry connected deeply with that image, a statement that added even more intensity to an already heated discussion. For some people, it's an uncomfortable topic, but others believe it explains a lot of what they think they're seeing in the public eye. According to critics, the pattern feels repetitive. Meghan is often seen in a difficult position, and Prince Harry steps in quickly. And to some observers, it starts to feel like the same situation playing out again and again. While Meghan was in Washington focusing on her message and public image, another headline suddenly grabbed attention and shifted the spotlight. Serena and Venus Williams announced their brand new podcast, and people immediately noticed one detail that stood out. Meghan wasn't part of it, and her name didn't come up at all. Instead, their first guest was introduced as Emma Bath, someone many see as a traditional and well-established figure within British high society.
Drops this, she goes on a podcast, she gets a lot of hate. People don't think you're authentic. Like, what do you have to say to people who don't think you're authentic? And here's what Meghan Markle says.
You have to be authentic.
Just be authentic. Did you see my baby mama dance?
I mean, stop it. First of all, can I just tell you the timing of that? We maybe watched it like 20 times yesterday. And I was like,
okay.
Online discussions quickly compared that image, elegant, accepted, and rooted in tradition, to what Meghan has often been trying to present publicly. Lady Colin Campbell weighed in again, saying they chose the real lady over the fake one, and that comment spread fast across social platforms. But what really caught attention wasn't just the guest choice, it was the silence around Meghan. People pointed out that Serena had previously been seen as supportive, so this absence stood out to many watching closely. Some even started suggesting that parts of Hollywood might be quietly creating distance, choosing not to engage the way they once did. Around the same time, another story began circulating online, adding even more momentum to the situation. During a state visit to the UK, it was reported that Donald Trump asked Queen Camilla a lighthearted question about Meghan. Instead of giving a direct response, Camilla reportedly smiled and made a subtle gesture, which some interpreted as a sign of restraint or silence. That small moment quickly turned into a major talking point, with many reading into it as a sign that certain topics are being carefully avoided. Candace Owens reacted to that report with humor, saying even the royals can't say it out loud, but everyone knows. That comment added even more attention and kept the conversation moving. And as these moments continue to stack up, from media, reactions to public responses, and even noticeable silence, some commentators say it all starts to shift how a public figure is viewed. In their view, it's no longer just about titles or status, it's about how the narrative is evolving in real time and how quickly public opinion can change.
There is no way on earth that any doctor on this earth would allow a woman with a geriatric pregnancy, high risk, and with 2 epidurals to leave the hospital within an hour of giving birth, which means that the doctors would have had to deliver Archie, spank his ass, wipe Meghan Markle, put her on a van or whatever, and just send her off.
And when you're pregnant, there's not a pillow under your skirt. And there's live footage of her walking towards camera with her abdomen swaying left to right in a black.
At the DC Summit, Meghan spoke about teaching women financial independence, aiming to deliver a strong and empowering message. But not everyone in the audience seemed fully convinced. For some listeners, the words didn't fully match the image they had in mind, and that disconnect showed up quickly in the reactions online. Comments started pouring in almost instantly, and some of them gained serious traction. One viral remark said Meghan's idea of independence is marrying into wealth, while another claimed she has never been fully independent financially. Those takes spread fast and pulled even more people into the debate. Candace Owens pushed the criticism further, saying Meghan talks about empowerment while benefiting from Harry's resources, calling it a form of luxury activism. That statement sparked even more discussion and divided opinions even more. From that point on, every time Meghan used the word independent, critics began flipping it, saying what they hear instead is dependent. And once that kind of contrast sticks in people's minds, it's hard to shake. For many viewers, no matter how polished or well-delivered the speech is, that lingering doubt doesn't just disappear. But this conversation goes beyond just one speech. Critics argue that the timeline confusion isn't new and that they've noticed similar moments before. They believe there's a pattern where certain details seem to shift depending on the moment or the message being delivered. And that idea is exactly what continues to keep this entire situation trending.
And Meghan Markle's surrogacy scandal has entered the mainstream media domain.
It sounds fake.
The metadata of the picture says that it was taken on May 8th, 2019. And he was born on May 6, 2019. Can somebody please explain?
And impossible to ignore. For example, in one interview, Meghan spoke about going through a very difficult emotional period during pregnancy, while in another, she described that same time as focused on healing and preparing for motherhood. And now, with the DC speech placing both pregnancies around the same time frame, critics are saying this goes beyond simple inconsistency. They're saying it just doesn't line up the way it should. Candace Owens described it as feeling like a movie where the script changes every week, and that comparison caught attention fast. From that perspective, every public moment, whether it's about struggle, strength, or family, can start to feel carefully shaped instead of natural. And that's exactly why people keep watching so closely. Because even in the most polished appearances, viewers believe small details can still slip through, and those details are what keep the conversation alive and growing. Buckingham Palace hasn't said a single word about any of this. No statements, no clarifications, nothing at all. And that silence is exactly what's making people pay even closer attention. When something this widely discussed gets zero official response, it naturally raises more questions and keeps everything moving. Some insiders claim the palace is aware of the confusion but is choosing not to step in. The reasoning, according to those voices, is that even addressing topics connected to royal children could open the door to a much bigger situation, one that brings intense attention the institution may want to avoid. Others see it differently and believe the palace is simply stepping back and letting things unfold naturally. From that angle, there's no reason to intervene when the narrative is already creating pressure without any official input.
You see, Meghan has very much been able to emphasize that these are the celebrity friendships that mattered to her. Big deal about the fact that she has been this groundbreaking woman who has actually achieved her goals while remaining part of high society in the UK, something that Meghan couldn't do.
She kind of sold her soul to the devil. Obviously, she's always wanted to be an A-list actress. She never wanted to be a princess. I called out from the very beginning. She wanted to be amongst the A-list because that was her life.
Candace Owens, however, doesn't think this situation is fading anytime soon. She believes that if there ever comes a moment where the palace is pushed to confirm or deny details about those timelines, it could become a major turning point. And with Meghan's latest comments bringing everything back into focus, the spotlight feels stronger than ever. Supporters of this view say this isn't about personal dislike. It's about consistency. When timelines don't seem to align, people naturally start looking closer at everything else connected to the story. Critics argue that when important life details sound unclear or shift over time, it doesn't come across as emotional or relatable. It starts to feel overly prepared. And when a speech about financial independence is delivered from a setting linked to wealth and privilege, some viewers say it becomes harder to connect with the message. They also point out that when moments are heavily edited, removing anything awkward or unpolished, it can begin to feel less genuine, even if the goal was to present something positive. What really makes this moment stand out is the tone of the reaction. It's not just frustration, it's fatigue. People are saying they're tired of mixed messages, tired of speeches that don't fully land, and tired of trying to piece together a story that seems to keep shifting over time. Candace wrapped up her segment with one sharp question, and it spread fast across social media. She asked if you can't remember your own truth. Were you ever living it? That line took off quickly, getting reposted, discussed, and debated nonstop. It hit differently because it didn't come across like a direct attack. It felt more like a challenge. Instead of sounding like gossip, it pushed the conversation toward one key idea: credibility. And once that word enters the discussion, everything starts to feel more serious. Candace made it clear her point wasn't about mocking Meghan. It was about accountability. She focused on the idea that it's difficult to consistently promote empowerment while timelines appear to shift in ways people can easily notice. And that's exactly why this conversation continues to grow. That message connected with a lot of viewers because it wasn't loud or over the top. It was structured, simple, and for many people, hard to ignore. Now the reactions are everywhere, and they are completely split down the middle. Some critics are going as far as questioning major parts of the story and suggesting things don't add up, while others are saying she can't even keep her narrative consistent. Those kinds of comments have been spreading fast and pulling more people into the discussion. At the same time, supporters are pushing back just as strongly. They're saying she may have simply misspoken, that she's human, and that speaking under pressure can lead to small mistakes. But even among those defending her, many are finding it difficult to fully explain the timeline confusion, and that's exactly why this situation keeps gaining momentum. Because in today's world, everything is recorded. Every speech, every appearance, every word gets stored and can be replayed instantly. Once something doesn't line up, people go back, compare, analyze, and those digital records don't just disappear. That's what keeps the conversation alive and constantly evolving. Now the focus quietly shifts back to Buckingham Palace, where a decision seems to be hanging in the air. Do they stay silent and let the conversation play out on its own? Or do they step in and clarify things directly? Some royal commentators believe a response will eventually happen, while others argue that staying quiet avoids making things even bigger. But that same silence can also make speculation grow even louder. And if the public ever starts to believe that key details around royal family timelines are unclear, then the impact doesn't just stay on Meghan, it stretches much further. That's when things move beyond headlines and into something much more serious. At that point, it becomes about trust, not just trust in Meghan as a public figure, but trust in the wider institution connected to her. Because once people feel like something doesn't fully add up, they don't stop at one question. They start digging into everything. From Candace Owens' perspective, this isn't just about one statement. It's about what that moment represents. She argues it highlights a deeper issue with the overall image being presented. Meghan's public identity, as critics describe it, has been built around a polished narrative, the strong couple, the family image, the carefully told story. But when even one key detail seems inconsistent, that polished image can start to crack. And once a crack appears, people start looking closer at everything else, searching for more gaps or differences. What made this moment stand out for many is how it unfolded. There were no hidden leaks or anonymous claims, just Meghan's own words being replayed and analyzed over and over again. That's what gave the story extra weight and made it harder for some to dismiss. Now attention is shifting toward voices in the media who were once more supportive. Figures like Piers, Morgan, Lady Colin Campbell, and others are beginning to question the timeline. And that shift in tone is adding even more momentum. And no matter how the story moves forward, that original clip keeps resurfacing and pulling everything right back into focus. Because for many critics, this isn't being seen as just another passing headline. It's being framed as a defining moment in public perception. People can move past criticism, but credibility is different. Once that starts to slip, rebuilding it becomes much more difficult. So now the big question hangs in the air. Where does Meghan go from here? If rebuilding trust and regaining control of the narrative is the goal, the path forward may sound simple, but actually following it is where things get tough. The message being repeated is clear. Stay consistent, no reshaping, no changing details later. Just present one version and let it stand. Candace Owens summed it up by saying, "Just say what's true once and let it stand." And that line has been repeated everywhere because of how direct it sounds. The idea behind it is that once people feel they can trust what they're hearing, everything else starts to settle naturally. But the other side of that is where the pressure builds. Critics argue that if details keep shifting, the risk isn't just more headlines, it's something deeper. It's the possibility of being seen as unreliable. And that's a label that's much harder to move away from. All of this momentum came from a single moment. One speech, one short clip, one line that people couldn't stop replaying. And just like that, conversations that had quieted down suddenly came rushing back, reopening old questions and putting everything under a microscope again. From Candace Owens' point of view, this isn't about personal dislike. It's about patterns that keep repeating. She frames it as a situation where someone speaks about truth, yet ends up presenting details that don't always stay consistent over time. And for many watching, that's where the bigger takeaway sits, because situations like this don't fall apart all at once. They build slowly until people start noticing every piece. They don't change all at once. They shift slowly, piece by piece, as small doubts start stacking up over time. In the end, it's not one single moment that changes everything. It's the buildup when details keep evolving and people start noticing. Trust doesn't disappear loudly. It fades quietly in the background until there's barely anything left holding the story together. And now it's your turn to weigh in because this situation is far from settled. There are still so many questions floating around, and opinions are split right down the middle. People everywhere are trying to figure out what's real, what's been misunderstood, and what might still come out next. Do you think this was just a simple mix-up that got blown out of proportion, or is there something deeper going on that people are only starting to notice now? The conversation keeps growing, and every new reaction adds another layer to this already intense situation. If you made it this far, don't just watch and scroll, jump into the discussion and drop your thoughts in the comments because this is one of those topics where every opinion brings something new. And if you want more breakdowns like this, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with anyone who needs to see what's being talked about right now. Stay tuned because if this situation has shown anything, it's that things can shift fast, and you don't want to miss what happens next. See you on the next one.